we have about half an hour here of actual discussion. Then we're going to open it up for questions. Do you guys want to take this initially to the Metaverse or to NFTs? Which one is more desirable? Which one's hotter? Metaverse. Okay. Who saw Zuckerberg's video from Facebook/Meta? So for those of you guys that don't know, they literally changed their direction and name to Meta to get after this Metaverse concept. And it's an interesting and huge potential concept. And I know how much you love the Metaverse. So tell us what is the Metaverse?
Okay, so yeah, it's one of those cringe-inducing words that makes me upset when I hear people. It's a trigger. It is a trigger, man. But the issue is that it's a trigger to me because it's a word that means everything, which means it means nothing. And I hear people talk about the Metaverse all the time, and like, oh yeah, are you ready for the Metaverse? We're gonna bring you to the Metaverse. And it's like, okay, well, what exactly is this Metaverse? Am I in the Metaverse? And if you do like look it up on Wikipedia, if you look it up on Google, the definition that you find on there, I actually personally believe is actually wrong. But what they say is that the Metaverse is a virtual reality or a augmented reality world that you can participate in and have ownership of things, right? That's such a short-sighted view. I mean, maybe in 100 years we're all going to upload our digital consciousness to a virtual world. We're not there in like the next couple of years. But the good news is like what the Metaverse really is much simpler. It's self-sovereign ownership that can be contextually displayed or interacted with differently in different worlds.
And cross worlds too.
And cross worlds. So give you like a real world example. Say you buy a car in the physical world. Instead of like having a piece of paper that says that you own this thing, you now have a NFT that designates the ownership of this car. But now what you can do is, because you have a digital representation of this car, you can bring your car to a virtual world and drive around in it. You could bring it, you could actually have a digital image that represents of that car on your wallet or on your smartphone or whatever. It's a thing that is a immutable, self-sovereign owned thing that can be contextually interacted with anywhere. And that's the true Metaverse. It doesn't have to be a virtual world. It could be the real world. It could be both at the same time. And that is really what the Metaverse is. A Metaverse is closer to a multiverse than the universe.
It's bigger and it's more than just AR and VR. It's right. Bigger than just, Ready Player One.
So you could take your car, get an NFT against it, in a non-functional title kind of way, like a title to a car, go into an online gaming system, lose all your money because you're an addict, and actually come out into the real world and find out that your car's gone because the guy who has the NFT repossessed you.
Yeah, the interaction with the real world is tricky and, based on oracles, and you actually have to trust people in the real world, and there's a lot of complexity to that interaction. That'll probably be a farther rock, to cross than the actual interoperability of worlds, but it's possible.
But one of the things that people get tripped up on when talking about blockchain or just digital things anyway, they go all the way. They go, okay, well, how do we make this completely on the blockchain and not interact with the real world at all? When in reality, that doesn't have to be. Like when we go full blockchain, it doesn't mean the real world goes away. There will still be agents in the real world that will do things depending on what the blockchain says. So yeah, you could bet away on a game the ownership of your car and find out that you have someone repo in it, and that is okay because you could do that now. You could bet away the value of your car, and then all of a sudden, you don't own it anymore.
Do you guys know the origination story of Ethereum with Vitalik's vision and reason for creating it?
No.
Do you know?
Go for it.
Okay. So you guys know what World of Warcraft is, correct? So Vitalik was a warlock in World of Warcraft, and he woke up one day and Blizzard had nerfed, meaning to make less OP, overpowered his abilities as the warlock. So he literally cried himself to sleep that night. And this is true, and he'll tell the story. But that day, he decided to create a world or a meta world where that couldn't happen. You can't have something, you can't have ownership of something and then somebody nerf it, right? They can nerf an interoperability of that in their walled garden or something, but they can't change something that you own. So that is the impetus, for the creation of Ethereum, and that's huge. We've been skirting around it so far, but do you have? I know you do, but what's the clean vision definition of NFT? What is an NFT?
Yeah, that's actually where I wanted to go. Is that
I know
most people here see NFTs as pictures
WTF
of monkeys that you buy, and why are people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars on pictures of monkeys when I can just right-click Save As, right? I'm sure you've heard people say it, or you've asked that question yourself. That's because you don't understand what an NFT is. What an NFT is the way that I like to describe it is when you buy anything in the real world, you're actually buying two things. You're buying the ownership of the thing, and you're buying the thing. In the digital world, in the NFT world, it separates those two things, where the NFT is not actually the asset. What it is a pointer to an asset that designates you the owner of it. The thing itself is kind of separated from it, and people can actually possess the thing, but they don't possess the ownership of the thing. Now, why this matters is because in a digital world, and like MP3s and things like that, you have the ability to, right now, send it to people. But if you're required to actually have the ownership of the thing to be able to interact with it, that becomes much more valuable and resellable. Right now, monkeys are weird, but the technology that it is traveling on is the valuable thing. It is the thing that everything in the world, because if you remove the overhead of what it means to actually own something, can be owned in an immutable digital way. But it's not just actually ownership, it's rules of ownership. What does it mean to own it? Who does it actually, who can own it? How is it transferred? All of this can be constrained in the actual asset itself without any extra overhead. And this is why NFTs, or what I don't even like the word, NFT is another trigger word for me because it's one of those words that means everything, so it means nothing. But self-sovereign ownership will actually change the world. It's not just pictures of monkeys. It's literally can be ownership of anything.
That's a good discussion too, because it is more than Bored Apes. The future is much larger for NFTs. So what are the possibilities of that future that we're just now starting to taste?
Sure. So I'll give you a couple of ideas. I think a lot of you are developers, so hopefully you build these things. So imagine a Caesar's gambling place where it has shows. And what they want to do is they want to sell a VIP pass to all of the shows for lifetime. Very valuable thing. But it's a thing that has ownership. But they don't necessarily want to allow anybody in the world to have that access, right? So they say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create the Caesars Club. And it will be a NFTs, but it'll be many more. Where if you're part of the Caesars Club, you get the Caesars Club NFT. And it's like a one of, say, 100,000. But now what we do is in the NFT of the VIP pass, we say you can only actually transfer this VIP pass to somebody that we've approved to be in the club. And now when you try to actually transfer that pass to somebody, it looks at the wallet of the person that you're transferring it and says, yep, this person is part of the club and will only allow the transfer to be there. Another thing they can put into it is not only can they, when it is transferred, it requires that a percentage of the purchase price to this new person goes back to Caesars. Royalties. So now they can constantly get value from the resale, because before they never would, and this is 100% enforceable. So trade after trade after trade, they're still making money, and they're much happier about it. This is actually much more exciting in the video game and music space, because like, do you guys remember, like, I mean, I'm pretty old, but like collecting albums or even CDs and then reselling those CDs? I mean, that was cool because you could buy something and then resell it for half the price and good. The music industry hated that. They saw like, wait a minute, we want people to build new things or buy new things because we're not seeing any of that money. Like, same thing in the video game. Like, the video game industry hated GameStop, Funko Land, things of that sort. But when you tie these two NFTs, the ability, the DRM into the NFT, now they can actually tie royalties in the resale. So now they can actually participate in the profits, in the actual profits of the
you
resale.
incentivize that trading and changing
Exactly.
hands, and you see the free entry model. Yeah.
Yeah,
Helps
I mean,
artists big time because getting money from a label is pulling teeth.
right. So yeah, so here's a few things that these are NFTs, and one thing I'll tell everybody that will really help you understand and be able to innovate with an NFT is that when people call something an NFT, you think, oh, it's a token, it's an asset. But really, it's just a data structure. It's a data structure that has a field in there of who owns it. And it has a function of what you can call to actually transfer that. But when you break down to the NFT of what that is, you can add all extra functionality to it. You can modify that function to say, okay, when I do transfer it, do X, Y, and Z as well. So how do we build
like, how do we build these? Like, beyond just simple minting on Rarible, whatever, how do you build this NFT?
I think this is actually a very important question because
I only ask important questions.
oh, good job then. I knew you were the right person for the job.
The only dodges important.
So NFTs today, for the most part, are what I call dumb NFTs. They transfer ownership from one place to another. That's not the future. I'm sorry. The future is NFTs that do something because they need to provide utility more than just I own this. So how do you build that? You can't really just take a template of something and just change a couple of variables. And the reason for that is because the true value of the future of NFTs are bespoke NFTs, things that do things differently. So what you need to do, shill alert, is that Reach allows you to build in this functionality into an NFT at a much higher level, at the level of the participant. And I'll give you actually a real-world use case. This actually happened last week. My VP of engineering for specialty product, he's very connected in the crypto development space. One of his friends asked, hey, this is the type of smart NFT that I'm trying to build. I went and got a bunch of estimates from a bunch of different places, and they're telling me it's going to take 6 to 9 months to actually build this smart NFT. And it's not anything crazy. It was like a evolving NFT that had royalties and the ability to actually feed it another NFT. Nothing that crazy. Actually, it's probably really crazy. I'm just in the space too much. But so my VP of engineering said, wow, you could build this exact same thing in 2 to 4 weeks with Reach. And the reason for it is because of the higher level of abstraction, that you can just build in the actual logic and not have to worry about all of the boring underlying low-level things of the verification, make sure you're not put in any holes, and you can just build the business logic and let the compiler guarantee it will actually do what it says. So I don't know, Russ, if you're going what exactly you're going to be teaching today, but you'll see some stuff from Russ showing you how to actually build things.
So that's good, and it's good that Reach can build on multiple platforms.
Yep.
Obviously, for network effect and a bunch of other reasons. But how if I'm a developer having this idea, how do I decide which block? I know Ethereum's obviously the best blockchain, but how do I decide which blockchain?
You believe that, I know that.
To implement my NFT on? Like, what are the decision factors when you're kicking this NFT around that guide you in a direction as far as blockchain goes?
We can tell that you've got a fat wallet because you can afford the gas on Ethereum if you think Ethereum is is the best. But what you really do is that you need to understand what the use case is of your NFT. Are you, is it going to be transferred around a lot? Are you going to be interacting with a lot? And really what you need to do is you need to look at the chains Algorand is one that you have the ability to, it's a low cost, high throughput, and, and decentralized. If that is what you're actually looking for, you don't really care about the large network, which I think is just temporary until things kind of even out. You would go with a chain that actually is easier, better to use. If you need to today instantly connect to DeFi and huge TVL, you'd have to pick a chain that has tons of TVL on it. But the idea is that
Total value lock.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. As a developer, you shouldn't have to make that decision based off of the actual onboarding process. You should make that decision based off the features of the underlying chain. And that's the most important part, is what chain will actually give you the things that you need and make you the most successful.
Yeah, as well as like network effect,
Network effect.
where your audience is for that,
Right.
security, decentralization, like
All those things.
you think about as well, or is that?
I do. But at the same time, you need to really you have to think about all those things. And you got to kind of look at them without being overly biased. You need to say, okay, what do I really need? What is the thing that is going to make my product the most successful? And all of those things that you just said are variables you need to look into.
That's awesome. And I know we've been talking about NFTs, and that's the title of the talk and everything, but NFTs are a small subsection of the metaverse and blockchain power.
Right.
What are some other games you mentioned? What are some other things that you can do that would be helpful in delivering that metaverse or the future
Sure.
potential of blockchain that you guys are scratching the surface of?
Okay, so I'll drip a little alpha. I don't know how degen you guys are right now, but that's a
degen.
word. So one of the projects that we're working in on our specialty product team is the Game Jam protocol. And it's, in my mind, the best representation of the metaverse, mixed with NFTs, mixed with DeFi, mixed with everything.
All the things.
All the things into one ecosystem. This is another use case of what you could do, and you could ask Bill this as well. Go for it. I don't know if you're familiar with the loot box industry. It's a 20-something billion dollar a year industry where you pay money to a game and you get skins for that game. Fortnite, Overwatch, everything of that sort. But the problem is that you end up spending a lot of money, sometimes thousands of dollars, and you get bored of that game. And then what?
And it's locked in the game.
And it's
you
locked in the
can't take it
game.
to another
Can't do anything of
game.
that sort.
Yeah.
That's bad, obviously. You just lost a lot of money. They gained a lot of money, but you lost a lot of money. And that, I'm a gamer, I've been a gamer all my life, that always bothered me. So I decided to actually build a new protocol that fixes that problem. And the way that we fix the problem is that rather than the loot boxes being centered around the games themselves, I thought, let's make an entire ecosystem that is centered around the loot box, a gaming ecosystem, so that you have the ability to buy these loot boxes and get the loot out of them, and have the ability to then bring your loot from game to game to game, and also make them an NFT so you own them, so you can buy them, trade them, do whatever you want. And give you an example, the first set that we're actually releasing is Greek gods, or mythological creatures, and you get the Zeus asset. You go to one game and it's a first-person shooter, and it's a skin of a gun. You go to another game, it's a card game, it's a new deck of cards. You go to a fight, character is actually a fighter in that game, and you get to actually use them as a character. And the way that you do this is, because if we go back to what I was saying earlier, is that what an NFT truly is a representation of ownership of a thing. But if you lower the level of abstraction down to the base level of pretty much the string Zeus, contextually what that means can be different from game to game to game, and allows you to interact in different interfaces, like I was talking about earlier, with which the true metaverse. You have an infinite amount of potential of what that one asset can be.
You could assign it attributes but those attributes could be interpreted differently based
Exactly.
on where you're using that.
Do you control how they are interpreted? If Zeus is a fighter in the other game?
No, this is fully decentralized. The game designer has the ability to
You
interpret
could
what
design
that
your own
asset
game
is.
to do so.
Exactly.
Let us know when the token's out.
For sure.
Can you guys get a mic to start the Q&A, Cindy?
Is this the only one?
That's the only one? Okay.
I'll just repeat.
Yeah, if you can state your name if you're comfortable, and then the question.
Sure. Jeff Stanislow with RSK Capital, for a hedge fund. I have a question about what we talked briefly a little bit this morning about like Decentraland and Sandbox. Where does that play a role in all this? And do you think that they are going to be like an aggregator of these NFT worlds? Or do you think they'll just like Caesar will just have its own world and doesn't need a Decentraland world?
I believe for them to be successful, it will be like what I was talking earlier with what the metaverse really is a multiverse. And this, what these will be is there will be individual universes that allow for interoperability and contextually display these NFTs in those individual worlds. So what they're building is worlds that will be able to have interoperable NFTs and display them in their own way.
And you'll even have worlds inside worlds. So Atari and Caesars and others will have their own buildings. Inside of that, you'll be able to play Atari games or gamble at the Caesars world and have those NFTs interacting with that and be able to take and...
Is being necessary, though, as part of the asset, or do you see that the blockchain just solves that problem? They can just open their own thing and not really have to, like, be a part of Sandbox or something?
So what the land does is like the fun thing about blockchain is it's all economics. It's like a economic streamland. And what land does is it enters in scarcity. It says, okay, we're going to actually put a layer of a scarcity in here that's from worlds within worlds. We're saying that okay, there's only going to be able to be so many worlds inside this world. So we have to actually put a scarcity amount out and say, okay, well, only 1,000 things can live in this world, so the value of that will go up, and yeah, so it'll be all a piece of it. And like truthfully, the future is like individually curated. You need to have all of these options to be able to build what makes you happy, and all of these places most likely will succeed because people have different tastes.
And there needs to be a place for people to interact. The metaverse fundamentally can't work if you're in your own little pod doing your own little thing and not interacting with people. We all are social creatures, and our communication and interactions. Yeah, you can do your own thing, but those worlds are where people have curated, either companies, individuals, organizations, that meet space in the metaverse. Meet space is obviously used ironically there. Anybody else? Question? Yeah.
Alex Funds, investor. What is the mechanism to take a physical asset like a painting or a piece of real estate, convert it to like an NFT, and then stake it because it has a collateral value?
Yeah, so it's a great question. How do you bring the physical world into the digital world of NFTs? And the answer is there's really not a central truth yet, unless you know something. But the idea is that every time that you need to bring the physical world into the digital world, you need some type of agent to enforce that meaning. And different states are actually right now approving that smart contracts is actually law, but you need to have some way to point to something in the real world, and you need to make sure that the real world agrees that that pointer is actually enforceable.
I would slightly differ and disagree with that. You need a central authority, or basically is what you're saying. The fact that we have money is evidence to that, right? All you need is a collection of an objective assignment of value on that thing. So if everybody agrees that that thing has value, that there is some sort of demand to drive, if in this case you're staking it, money or something else coming out of it, then it does have value. The collective assignment of value gives it the value, not necessarily somebody saying that it has value.
So when I meant by that is that, yes, I agree with you that if the majority on the outside world believe something to be true, you don't need a central authority to actually enforce it. It's just one of those things where until you hit majority, you need to actually have some way to enforce it.
So like a piece of art that's worth $100 million, you can fractionalize that and sell tokens to go along with that. Because it was sold, you can say that is worth.
I mean, the SEC would have a big issue
they
with
would
that.
call that a security. That's not to say you can't do it, though.
Right.
That would be a very clear way to do it, is
Right.
to create a security from that.
The technically not hard at all. I could build what you just said in a matter of a day. You would need to make sure that I don't go to jail, and that would take a lot longer.
So, as a parent, okay, with children who want to play games, but at the same time I want them to learn, what's interesting to me is I could, if companies interacted this way, they go to the learning site, they spend X number of minutes doing their math, doing their homework, whatever, they can earn a token that then gives them time on their account so they can go play Minecraft.
Yeah, I mean, the blockchain,
Motivational,
Like-
kind of, you need something, go do something, earn it somewhere else, and then apply it there.
the great thing about this is that blockchain allows, I'm going to make my shell of the paper. So Some Simple Economics of Blockchain is by Christian Catalini and Joshua Gans, is a great research paper that talks about the true value of blockchain. I recommend you all read it.
It's short. It's like 9 pages.
It is a research paper, so it is a little dry, but it's short. I think it's super, super valuable. And the true value of
What
blockchain,
was the name of it again?
Some Simple Economics of Blockchain.
Thank you.
But what it says is that the true value of blockchain is that it lowers the cost of verification. And you can look at many different industries out there that have a high cost of verification, and the boring thing to do is to use blockchain to actually improve that. The thing that's really exciting is the completely new industries that are created by lowering the cost of verification. And what you just talked about is one of those things. Building a system to reward your kids' time for playing a game, nobody would build that in the real world because the cost to actually maintain that would be too high. But somebody could build this in the blockchain and just let it exist, and anybody actually could build onto it, and it would just work in the blockchain forever. And so things like this will exist because of the blockchain.
Yeah, the second part of the paper of why blockchains have value is the ability to incentivize or create network effects. So in this case, you have great value in aligning the incentives of your child with what you want them to do is study. So that's called mechanism design, and that's a lot of what founders have tokens for. A lot of times when you see a token, you're like, why the hell does that exist? Because it can align behaviors with the network or what the organization is trying to do with that.
Cool.
Anybody else question?
Takes right there.
I mean, building that, so you would have to build actually a currency to hold the actual time. You would have to be able to build the incentives. I would say probably an experienced Reach developer probably would take 2 weeks to actually write the smart contract, please, and probably like a month to 2 months to actually build the interface.
Yeah, in the back.
So to move what you're saying, like level 1 to level 2 attributes and those very sophisticated economics, like bonding and all that, like people in this room would understand it. How does that migrate to the masses when you're talking to millions of people adopting? Is it like I don't know how the car works, I just enjoy driving it?
Great question.
I don't really care what's underneath.
How you make these complicated things work is you don't tell people how they work. You just tell the end user what the value of them doing it is.
It should be transparent. Your killer app shouldn't even need to say that it's on the blockchain. It is right now because blockchain's hot and it will be continuing. But we have arrived when you don't know it's on the blockchain. It's just a killer app and you have fun playing it and you earn money doing it, etc.
A huge red flag to me, and so I advise many companies, and if a company pitches me their product and says, this is X on the blockchain, huge red flag, because if you need the word blockchain to sell your product, it's not going to be successful. Ownership, I think people can understand. Anything that can be owned digitally and physically can be represented on the blockchain, and think about it as ownership, rules of ownership, and rules of transfer. It opens up everything, the physical world, deeds and titles, to supply chain, to pretty much anything that could potentially have value.
All right, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.